Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set in tune to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Swinging his way onto This One Time on Psychedelics to jam with us today is a man who in the last year of knowing him has shared not only some incredible stories of his psychedelic experiences with me, but has also done so in a manner that speaks to how much he respects these medicines and has been using them to discover more about himself and the world around him. He is the founder of Steel Mace Flow, a movement centered around expressing the emotions and energy we have inside, while also allowing each person to create a unique style based on their experience of life, and is also one of the most lighthearted and comedic people I've had the pleasure of meeting in my life. Please help me in welcoming Leo Urquides to the show. What's up, Leo?
My man. Well, good to have you. It's good to have you on my show, Ryan.
Yeah,
the show is all about psychedelics.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, bro. This is amazing.
I'll take over from here, Ryan. Okay?
Sweet,
I already
bro.
have questions. I already have questions for myself. I'm just goofing around, man. Thank you for having me. You know, a lot of the podcasts I do are there's not a lot of comedy. There's not a lot of levity. It's all very serious business. And as I prepared for this podcast, there's not a lot out there like this. And so I honor you for bringing a different lens to the practice, as I like to bring different lenses to all the practices I'm involved in. I got dressed up, all right?
We're definitely releasing
ceremonial psychedelic attire. It is a Eeyore onesie.
Dude.
All right. This one time I was on Psychedelics, and here in Austin, Texas, we like the model Keep It Strange.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited to Eeyore's birthday. Eeyore's birthday is when all the weirdos go out to the park and celebrate. There's drum circles, there's boobs out,
Wow.
There's jugglers. And so I had a great experience, and it was my first time in being in Austin and feeling that we know there's laws, but we don't care about them today attitude. And so I went out and bought this Eeyore onesie, and whenever I feel it calling, I put it on like the ceremonial poncho for the fire ceremony.
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. And, you know, to comment on your thing about the seriousness, we're going to make up for all the comedy you've missed out on today in this episode.
Thank God.
Because that's like really something I've been riffing on a lot recently. Just in life in general. Is like, why do people take themselves so seriously? Why did I take myself so seriously for so long? And it's still something I come up against. And it's something that psychedelics have helped me traverse and transcend quite a bit. Because sometimes when you're on 5 grams of mushrooms and you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, how serious could I possibly be? You know, like there's a certain
Nothing
point.
like that mushroom mirror conversation.
Yeah.
It usually is deep stares into the eyes, followed by laughter and the thought of, look at what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Leo, you know, the first question I want to ask you, why is it that bathrooms are so likely to steal 3 hours of your life every single psychedelic experience if you're in a house? Have you found that to be true?
When I'm on mushrooms and I start getting a vibe that I don't want to play with yet, go to the fucking bathroom. All right? It's solitude. We have built our whole life behind locking this door. I know people who go brush their teeth, they shut the door. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm in the bathroom, I'm in program. I shut the door, I lock it, I brush my teeth, I'm flossing. And it's like, okay, well, it's just part of, maybe it's that place where we can lock the door and control the environment a little bit more. But you ain't lying, man. It'll take 3 hours of your day.
Dude, it's literally funny to me because I've had this at festivals too, where, you know, I get into a bathroom and the bathrooms there are just like a porta potty. You know, it's nothing crazy. Sure. But like after a while, I think also the whole time thing definitely plays into it, because after a while I'm like, wait, have I been here for a long time? Is time even real? And then by the time I start thinking about that, then I have been in there quite a long time. It's a Russian roulette, really, you know, every bathroom trip you go on.
Yeah, and then your friend's missing for a couple hours, and you're like, "Where's Jeff?" And you're like, he's in the bathroom." And you're like, "Oh, cool. What's going on in the bathroom? I wonder what kind of light bulbs they have in there. What does the shower curtain look like?" "Jeff, I'm coming."
It's funny too, because you always think they got into some epic adventure. Man, we haven't seen Jeff in like 2 to 3 hours, man. What have you been up to? He's like, "Dude, I got stuck in the bathroom. I don't know how long. I just lost myself in there." And you're like, "Oh, would have been a lot cooler if you didn't." But, here we are.
Well, and then they give you the advice. You should go in there, dude, and just stare at the patterns on the wall.
It's so true, man. It's so true. And something I'm curious to ask you, man, because you seemingly have a very good outlook on psychedelics. You have a very accurate outlook for whatever that means, in terms of how I look at psychedelics. And I'm curious, being someone who grew up in the DARE program days and whatnot, I know I had kind of an adverse reaction to psychedelics when I first heard about them. But I'm curious, did you always find yourself having this positive outlook on them? And if so, where do you think that came from?
Yeah. So way to hit the nail on the head. DARE,
Ba-boom.
Drug Awareness Resistance Education, is when the cops show up at your school and gather intel on your parents. I remember the day. I was never good at answering questions. Never. And the DARE officer says, "Do you know what this is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what that is, pimp." Of course I know what that is. And the cops looked at me strange, and my relationship with the school system and my mom transitioned. And they taught us a lot about drugs. And I'm very curious. Goddamn, did that police officer corrupt my mind? He started talking about marijuana and how it was the demon. And I was like, I don't know. My mom's a little crazy, but she's not a demon. Matter of fact, when she smokes weed, we get along great. So I knew he was full of shit. I mean, he was doing the best he could with the information he had and the programming that he had. But as he, we talked about booze a lot. We talked a lot about beer, talked a lot about alcohol, and we talked a little bit about LSD, or acid. And I remember going, "What's that? I'm not familiar." I was familiar with uppers and downers, but I wasn't familiar with psychedelics. And so I asked some questions, and good cop, bad cop, all the same person.
Yep.
The good cop was giving me advice on how it was bad for me. And I remember him saying, "You take it and you see things and it changes your reality. And like you see a purple elephant and it's scary." And I was like, "Nah, man, fuck no. Purple, pink elephant? That would be the best thing to see."
That's like Barney.
And so I became fascinated with psychedelics and I wanted to party. I wanted to see what LSD was like. I wanted to feel what mushrooms were like. I ran a very straight and narrow life as a combat athlete, so rarely drank, didn't smoke weed. I would have a couple celebration beers after a fight, and they would wipe me out because of my relationship with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Not drinking, getting ready for a sport, competing. One beer will fuck you up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but as I was fighting, I was like, "Man, when this is over, I'm going to party." I know you could take some pills and go to a rave and dance all night and feel like you met Jesus. I want to feel that. I just knew it was the wrong time.
Yeah.
LSD was not about mushrooms, and LSD was not about the healing journey. It was about let's get fucked up and see weird shit. So I never, as an athlete or martial artist, put the two worlds together of like psychedelics and healing. And I got into partying. Had a good time, but partying was never about let's see how little we can do. I'm a bit of an exhibitionist. The name Leo Savage was earned. I like to do a lot of drugs. And at the time, it wasn't let's do a little bit. It was like, let's get fucked up.
Let's blow the top off.
Yeah, let's see how high we can get.
Yeah.
Young man's game. Get a little bit more experience. You're like, let's take as little as we can.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that for the first time, like taking as little as you can. I was like, there's no point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going to feel it. But I didn't really understand how to feel it when I was taking chemicals, plant medicine, when I was doing drugs. I was always had a lot in front of me. I had a lot of music, a lot of people, gadgets to entertain me, things to stare at, things to look at, and I never closed my eyes and worked from within. Yeah, so that was my introduction to psychedelics, a dare officer, curiosity, recognizing that I was getting bad advice through personal experience, even though this is a young age. And I'm trying to think of the first time I took LSD. I was at a rave, I was partying, and my buddy tells me, "Hey, this guy's got some LSD. Do you want some?" And at this time, it was rare to find LSD, at least in my circle, and we were a bunch of lunatics. But it was rare to find LSD. So every time I had an opportunity, I would just buy as much as I could, which like 10 hits at that time was a lot.
Yeah.
And that 10 hits didn't last me very long. But I took this LSD, and I was on a bunch of other drugs. So I really didn't get to hone in on what the psychedelic experience was. And then I got home and I had this really neat experience where I was sitting on my couch and I had my first hallucination.
Mm.
And it was not just like I saw the pink elephant, but there was a feeling associated with what I saw. And so I was sitting on my couch and I had this big shag rug, and I looked down at the couch, or I felt in my couch like I was sitting at a throne. And there's this scene in Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, where he takes over and he's the king of the castle, and he's sitting on the castle and he looks down and there's this sea of people ready to embrace him as their new king. And so I'm sitting on my couch, which felt like a throne, and I look down at my shag carpet and I start to see the sea of people. And I got lost just for a quick second in that reality. And I pulled myself out of it because it was far.
Yeah.
It was farther than I had gone. And that was when I realized how powerful psychedelics could be. And I continued my reckless journey of taking as much of the psychedelic as I possibly could. And it was grand. And I'm glad I went all the way. I don't abuse drugs now, or plant medicine or whatever, to that extent. But you will catch me sprinting full speed on LSD anytime I'm hanging out with my friends.
I can speak to that because I have seen that happen. I have seen a full out sprinting Leo Savage.
I'm fast.
Yeah.
I'm fast.
No, you are. In your exact words, you were trying to blow something out, you know?
I was. What an experience, man.
Yeah, man. It was funny because throughout the night, you got sweatier and sweatier. And then the poncho kept making appearances, you know? And you were doing a perfect, what do they call it? 90-90 every time you sat down. And I just remember tripping myself and being like, wow, he's got a good like hip rotation. I remember thinking like, why am I thinking about this? The random things you think about, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious, what do you feel you were looking for when you were going that hard into psychedelics? Because I know for me, there was a while where I was just trying to find the edges. I'm like, okay, so how deep does this go? You know, I was curious. And so I'm wondering, were you curious? Was there something else going on? Like, what were you seeking when you were like being like reckless with them? Like, was there a mission or like a goal to that? Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show.
Yeah, there was, and I didn't necessarily realize it at the time, but I think you get a lot from diving into your past and looking at what you're doing, and then using this new experience of you to understand what was happening. And so I teach this lesson about being stuck in place. And so for a while, I was living two identities when I was young. I knew I was weird. I mean, I knew I was unique, and I never thought it was a bad thing. I knew what it was like to be misunderstood. And then I was living this other life of blending in. Every now and then I would let some of the weirdness go into the world, but it usually shocked, intimidated this other side of me or the people who were associated with it. So I never I knew I was weird, but I didn't know how weird. I didn't have a practice of like being weird and strange in front of people. Matter of fact, I was embarrassed to do that because nobody was doing it. And so diving deep into that world of psychedelics was getting in touch with that inner weirdo, seeing how strange I was and using the psychedelic experience as a magnifier to getting rid of the critic. I don't care what you think because I'm in my own world right now. And matter of fact, everybody else who was taking the psychedelics with me, it was almost like they were stepping into my world, or I guess collectively we were creating a world or a place where we could dive into that. But yeah, a lot of that, well, now that I think about it, was connecting with myself and in that fullest expression. I did find out the limit. And I think everybody who practices being weird, it's good. You should find a limit. You shouldn't be an extremist. You should find a level where you feel completely comfortable and you're not disrupting the relationships in your life. So that was the purpose of the deep practice. And I wasn't necessarily happy with myself in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of drug addiction tendencies, masking pains, not dealing with the shit, getting the mind switch, the instant mind switch. I don't have to deal with my shit. I can just take the shit and then I can dream up some new shit. Mm-hmm. So there was a healing aspect to it, and then there was a self-destructive aspect of it.
Yeah. No, that illuminates a lot. And, I can definitely relate being someone who has always considered himself the weird one as well, in a good way. I've always been proud to rock that flag. It was funny when you were mentioning having limits with the weirdness. I call it attenuating it, right? So when I'm around you, for instance, I'll just let my weird flag fly high. If I'm in a building with people in suits, probably not going to let that flag fly as high, and really it's because, for me anyway, that energy is not going to be received by those people. So I'm doing both myself and them a disservice. The invitation isn't there for me to be weird for them, so they don't want to hear it. And I'm just going to waste energy I could use being weird and enjoying myself with some other people or having fun elsewhere. And yeah, it's really interesting too, because when I first started my journey into psychedelics, like I had said, I grew up in Dare as well, and acid, what's that? That sounds terrible. The only other thing I know has acid in is batteries, so, led me down some strange roads. And then when I first started experimenting with them, I tried mushrooms first and, MDMA first. I was a raver kid, but the first psychedelic I tried was mushrooms. And I remember just being so shocked at how little it was. I tiptoed into it, but, expecting that, you hear, oh, if you do mushrooms 5 times, you're considered legally insane. All these things you'd hear when you were 14, and it's damn, I'm pretty insane at this point then. But hearing all that and then doing them and realizing there was so much good there. I didn't know how to put a word to any of it or how to describe it at that point. All I knew was that, wow, that was really interesting. And I didn't want to do it at all the next 3 months. So everything I had heard about it, oh, it's addictive, it's going to make you insane, it's all these things. I'm like, no, it didn't really do any of that. But what it did do is pique more curiosity in me. And then I started wondering who in me, right? As I started to being able to ask deeper questions, who am I, and going deeper in mushrooms in inward journey, started asking who is this person in me or this part of me that's curious about this, right? What is trying to be revealed here? And, it brings me to a great question that, psychedelics, plant medicines, animal medicines, these things have been being used really since the dawn of humanity, right? When you look back into records and such, and, ancestral living and tribal societies. And, I've often wondered, what do you feel the purpose of psychedelics are? If there's one, maybe it's different for every single person, But, as I've looked at like how many different cultures have used these medicines and also how many things have DMT in them, I mean, put it this way. If the universe never wanted us to be able to fuck something up, it would make it mushrooms, because mushrooms literally grow out of shit. Right. So like, try fucking that up, humanity. Like, unless you kill every animal on the planet, basically, you're not going to get rid of mushrooms. Ayahuasca vines can grow through cement, so these are some of the most hardiest plants on the planet, and it's in everything. So I'm curious, do you have any like insights on what you think psychedelics' purpose for humanity is, specifically humanity?
Yes, I do have some thoughts on that. When I got into psychedelics, it went LSD, mushrooms, DMT. And so whenever I have a student or a friend who's interested in getting into psychedelics and they've never done psychedelics before, I go straight for the DMT. I think a DMT ceremony trumps all and answers all the questions. I grew up religious, went to church a lot. I had a grandma who was very insistent on me going to church. And you know what that made me do? It made me not want to go to church.
I don't blame you.
I'll be honest. But I always found the conversation of God and creation, I always thought that was awesome. And I always said, man, I'd like to meet God. God, you want to meet? I mean, in the physical world? I mean, I know we're going to meet one day, but like,
die before I die.
I'd love to know that you exist. And more than just a feeling of being in church and everybody singing the same song and getting the community vibe, or, I never saw them. I wanted to know that there was something else out there. I know there's something else out there, but goddamn, I want proof. I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to ask you questions. I want to know if I'm going the right way. And the first time I took DMT, I got to break through the barrier of this reality, and I got to mix it up with some really amazing beings. And the experience was magical. I mean, I left my body. I entered some other dimensions. I met the coolest things that you could meet. And I knew that there was something else out there. And so it opened my lens on the things that are possible. I met this girl, and we were talking about past lives. In my past life regressions, I have focused in on, I have always been a child who never made it past 10. And so I'm always amazed at what I do, and all the inner beings and all the past lives of me are always super impressed at what we do, and explains why I've never stopped being a kid, because that was what I did. I thought that was a weird story. I met this girl. She's smoking hot. Okay. When girls are smoking hot, whatever they say, you're like, yeah.
The accuracy.
She's convinced that she's an alien from another planet. And man, I saw aliens from another planet, man. I talked to them. One touched me, put their hand in me. And so I know they exist. And so it just opened my reality to like, fuck yeah, you are. You're an alien. Hell yeah. And so yeah, to breed consciousness and to show you stuff that's not of this world, to create magic. It's difficult to create magic if you don't know it exists. If you have a clear vision of what magic looks like, it helps you create more magic. And so the rabbit hole doesn't stop on just the one DMT trip. And maybe you don't need the proof to know that aliens and gods exist, but it's fucking there. There's all these people all over the world, and they try this thing. And I tell you, hey, you're going to take some DMT. This is what's going to happen. I can describe some events that are probably going to happen. You're going to meet a guide. You're going to meet a being. They're going to have a message for you. It's going to make a lot of sense. You're going to come out of the world, and you're going to lose the ability to speak their language, but you will bring back the message that your flesh can understand. So that's my idea on that reality as well. Now, so that's the really far out one. That's the really far out one.
Dude, I love that one.
So, and then here's a smaller one that's more physical. This one time on psychedelics, there I was.
Boom.
I was supposed to be in this kettlebell video. I was supposed to, I'm not a kettlebell guy, especially like back in the day. I was not a kettlebell dude, but it was like this super cool. It was basically the Avengers called me and they were like, hey, Leo Savage, we're going to go do superhero shit. And I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to come. And so it's this amazing group of humans. I remember the opening ceremony. Everybody gave their introduction. Hi, I'm Mauricio. I've been doing the kettlebell for 16 years. Hi, I'm Adam. I have a kettlebell tattoo right here. I'm world champion kettlebell person. Everybody knew what the kettlebell was. I was like, I'm Leo, and I don't know anything about kettlebells. And I acted like it too, because it was the reality. I was horrible. So here I am. I felt like Ant-Man. If you watch the Avengers, I felt like Ant-Man. I felt like the dork. There's God. There's fucking Captain America. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I swing a mace, but I don't have a mace right now, so I feel very powerless.
You're like, hey, I'm Leo, and apparently I'm going to learn a lot about kettlebells today.
Unfortunately, fortunately, this thing was in San Diego. Unfortunately, the event was outside. Why do I say unfortunate? Because I went a day early to swing a mace on the beach, and I got this super bad sunburn, super fucking bad. And I did extra shitty. I was baking in the sun, trying to take in this information I couldn't take in. I was getting frustrated. I'm putting sunscreen all over my already burnt body just to try and have a layer of protection. And sunscreen and kettlebell education don't work, okay, even under regular circumstances. And so this amazing group of men, we go back to our amazing beachfront property that we had rented for team building. And I said, I'm going to bed. Man, I like to party, but I was beat up. I went to bed, man. 8:00 at night, I was in bed.
That's when you know it's bad.
I had this amazing CBD cream, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was putting it on my skin to kind of stop the chafing from happening because everything sucked. I woke up in the morning, of course, before everybody because the time I went to bed, and my sunburn was gone. Shout out to PH Secret. That's the CBD company. They sell it. It's the best CBD I've ever used. I've used a ton.
That's awesome.
But it took away my sunburn. And I was like, damn, what a trip. And I saw a blue vial on the kitchen table.
Oh, shit.
The leader of all the men realizes I'm up. He's sleeping on the couch. He wakes up. He's the coolest fucking guy. We're filming a kettlebell education, like a commercial or something. You know, we're filming. There's all these amazing people there. The host gets up and he's like wiping his stuff out of his eyes. He's like, hey, Leo, do you know what that is? And he points at the table and I said, yes, that's LSD. He's like, how did you know? And he says, do you want to take some? I think, fuck yeah. Yeah. Because I know when I'm on LSD, I'm a goddamn superhuman. I've never taken LSD with education. And my experience with LSD was like, let's go hard. My buddy's dropping the LSD in my mouth. I'm trying to leave names out of this, but one might come out. 2 of the kettlebell gods of the fitness industry are staying with us. And remind you, I sucked ass all day the day before. They're walking down this big, beautiful spiral staircase. They see me taking LSD, 7 in the morning, and they both give me this look of like, you know, when your dad's just...
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
But he's just like, what the fuck is wrong? What are you watching? They give me the look, and I'm like, yeah. And then magic happens, brother. This is day 2 of this education. So we're going to get into like the intricate movements, like snatch was the big one. And I remember trying to learn how to snatch from other people, trying to learn the various styles of snatching, the hard style, the sports style. And I just wasn't good at it. And they say, okay, guys, this is how we're going to snatch. And I was like, perfect. I mean, I was so connected with my body. I remember somebody saying, your left hip's down. And I just made this micro adjustment, super connected, go up 3/4 of an inch left hip. The accuracy was real. And I became one with the kettlebell in hours. I'm doing this armbar move. I'm laying, we're outside in some AstroTurf. I'm looking up at this big, beautiful palm tree, this crystal clear sky. I can smell the ocean breeze. I realize what the fuck I'm doing, who I'm with, and I recognize I'm killing it. I just had this moment where I said, I'm never going to learn fitness education without taking LSD again. There is something miraculous here. And then I felt this energy building of freedom. I knew that my relationship with the kettlebell was locked in, and that if I told it to do something, it would do it. And in this particular education, there's a build-up into creating movements, and then they say, okay, guys, we're going to throw some music on, and you're going to move the bell however you want. And man, I could feel that fucking long fuse just being lit. Here comes the free flow. I can feel it. When the fuse got shorter, I was like, I want to jump out of my fucking skin. I got the spider web, the spider web of thought, where I knew what they were going to say. I knew how it was going to work out, and I saw the possibilities of exploration. Mm-hmm. And so for maybe a couple hours there, I wasn't tuned in. I was just training in my mind dojo. Like, I knew they were teaching the thing, but I was like, I could do this, and I could do this, and I bet you I could do this. And then they said, go. And I fucking ripped. I ripped so hard, people stopped, and they watched me. They were amazed that I started out like this bumbling fool.
Sunburn
fool. And then I was making this beautiful art with psychedelics. And it wasn't a lot of LSD. It was smaller amounts than I usually took. And I found this amazing ability to manipulate my body, take in information. And I found this new realm of flow state that I was not familiar with. So there was, why do I think psychedelics are here? I can't tell you why they're here, but I can share some experiences that I've had, that are worth sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an incredible story. And I've shared similar experiences, specifically with LSD and learning new things. And it's funny that back in like the 50s and 60s and whenever the government was researching this stuff, they were actually using LSD as pretty much what you'd call a nootropic these days. I don't know if they used that terminology back then, but basically to help you learn better, and you definitely feel that, because for me, what LSD specifically does, I always say mushrooms take you on a quest, acid puts you in an open world map. Right. So basically it removes you from your mind, right? From the working mind, from the ego, whatever you want to call it, from your intellect. And you're able to just tether out, and then you're able to go, all right, cool. What do I want to do? Oh, I can pull all these things together. I can make this new thing. All of a sudden, kettlebells in your instance make sense, because now, instead of working from memories of like how you swing a mace or whatever and trying to apply it to that, you're taking a more objective look and actually being able to say, like, what is the way that I can use these in a way that I've never used anything before, right? Because if kettlebells are new to you, then you've never used them before. And so how can I use these like I would use kettlebells if I had been using kettlebells for, say, 10 years? And it allows you to break through a lot of the barriers that otherwise may have taken me, let's say, an extended amount of time to get around, because, in your situation, I swing mace, so I'm going to try to apply those same tactics to a kettlebell. In my situation, LSD has helped me a lot with creating music. So I played guitar since I was 15. And I remember like one of the first things I wanted to do when I took acid was like, I got to get home and play guitar, because I was just so curious, dude. And it broke me out of my box. And I wasn't even aware of how much of a box I was in until I took LSD and tried playing guitar. Because at first it was kind of like, all right, what do I do here? And then I started just going off things that I had never tried before, that otherwise my normal mind probably would have said like, it's silly, just do this. This is what sounds good to you, whatever. But in a way, I was under the knife of, hey, you have an opportunity to look at everything you've ever been interested in with guitar and just say, fuck it all if you want, and just try something completely new. Whereas usually my ego, my identity would be entrenched in like, I make metal music, or like I play blues or whatever, so it was really interesting to me. And, we've talked a good amount about our positive experiences with psychedelics and their incredible influence on consciousness. One thing I did want to talk about real quick, going back to your very far out picture of consciousness, I truly believe in that, man. For me, I feel as though, you ever play StarCraft back in the day?
I did not.
So it was basically like my dad used to play it. So I used to see it all the time. And basically you were it was a computer game, and it was kind of like,
I am familiar with it, but,
okay.
But I haven't played it. Yeah.
You know how like Grand Theft Auto used to be back way in the day when it was like a bird's eye view or like a helicopter view of the map, kind of similar to that. But imagine that like where you're directly around is lit up, but outside of that is all dark and you don't know what's there. There's monsters, who knows what, right? So for me, I think of the mind as the same way, as awareness as the same thing. And then as you do psychedelics, you can then get PEAK experiences, big peak experiences behind what is in that darkness, right? And then it will inevitably mostly become dark again unless you do the work to integrate and have PEEK experiences. So like that's something I always share with people, is like, that's why now I love meditation so much, because psychedelics has painted a roadmap for me of like what's possible, especially with like DMT breathing and things like that. And now it's like, how do I hack my physiology in the normal waking state to be able to match those experiences? And also just to be able to pull more out of life that way. So yeah, for me, I know it's been an extremely consciousness elevating practice of mine. And it's so freaking rad too. Like I've had so much fun with it. And I've also had some challenging experiences. And so what I wanted to talk with you about, because I know we've talked briefly about this in our meetups before, but I don't think anyone could make a bad trip, quote unquote, bad trip or challenging experience funnier than Leo Savage. So I'd love to hear some or some experiences where maybe the setting was wrong. Maybe you just took too much. What happened? And how'd you get through it?
Man, yeah, I've been very blessed in that my relationship with psychedelics has been a lot of fun and adventure. And so the bad trip, the scary thing that happens to you, I've always enjoyed moving into that darkness. And I have this memory of being a little kid and being afraid of the dark, and telling my mom, like, I'm super afraid of the dark, and trying to explain that to her. And so we would do this thing where we'd be in the living room, lights on, bedroom, the lights were off. And I would go as far as I could into the darkness. And I take as much as I could, and then I run out like something was chasing me, man, fucking afraid. Yeah. And I remember sliding and like skidding my knees for the first time on the carpet, but it was fun. It was fun going into that. But here are some cautionary tales. I've had some people try and keep up with me, and it hasn't gone so well. I've had seen some people not realize what the psychedelics were doing to them. I've seen somebody take a good amount of LSD, their eyes fucking go for it, and they were convinced that they weren't high. And so I've seen some people develop some bad habits in that practice. But I do have some story. I do have a story that came to mind. Mushrooms are involved. So I did. This is one time where the fear made me move. I didn't want to move towards it. Me and my friends had this beautiful day planned. We're going to the mountains, going to the specific mile marker 42 up in the Jemez in near Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's some hot springs there. It's beautiful. It's nature, camping grounds. And we're going to take some mushrooms in the day and do a day trip. And then as the night hit, we were going to take some Molly. And so we got to double dip in like the sunlight and the night. And so we take the mushrooms and we go on this hike, and we find this rock that is a perfect couch for 7 people to sit on. I mean, it was, we knew we were on mushrooms, but it looked like somebody made a rock couch.
Thanks, Mother Earth.
And so we're sitting down on this thing, and it's happening, the peak, and we're looking at this huge valley, and it's just full of green trees. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'm with my buds. And then I look to the right, and there's had been a fire. And so there were all these burnt trees, and they put the fear in me. I needed to leave. And so I told everybody, hey guys, let's go. And they were like, no way, man, this is fucking great. And I was like, these trees over here are freaking me out. And everybody saw the trees, and they knew Leo didn't get freaked out. And so there was this sense of urgency to get comfortable. And we left. We weren't doing so great, so we took the Molly. And we had these neat little headlamps that my buddy Phil bought. And I was like, why did you get those? Those are so dumb. Turned out they were awesome. So we have our headlights on. We're walking through the forest. And I'm just walking, looking, walking. And I'm like, hey, I turn around and everyone's kind of laughing and they're following me. And I was like, are you guys following me? Which was obvious. And they're like, yeah. And this had been going on for like an hour to 2 hours. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't know where I'm going. I'm lost. And they're like, don't worry, just keep walking. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm walking for a while, in my own world. And so, yeah, we got a little lost in the forest on mushrooms. Come to find out, I had these awesome running shoes. I didn't know they had reflectors on them. So the guys that were following me, their headlamps were shining on my reflective shoes. And so they were completely entertained. And after some time, my buddy feels like, Leo, take your shoes off. I said, why? He said, just do it. I was like, yeah, of course. Took my shoes off. We switched shoes. And we followed him for another hour staring at my shoes, leading the way. So, I really haven't had a bad experience myself, but I've had a couple that were pretty gnarly. I'll share another one comes to mind, and DMT. I have an alchemist in my life who has been a huge blessing in introducing me to different levels of potency in DMT. And so the last batch I got, the alchemist tells me, this is good, good one. So I went to Arizona, and I was with this good group of men. And the idea with DMT, if you've listened to the directions, it's usually like, hey, you want to take 3 big rips and hold it for as long as you can. And so that's always been what I've done, taking the 3 big hits. And I took the first hit and I pass it. My buddy takes his hit and he's done. Boom, he's out. Then my next friend who has experience with DMT, he hits it and he's out. My buddy Nate hits it and he's out. And I was like, damn, this is some shit. And so I hit it a second time and I'm like, you know what? That's good. I could feel I was where I needed to go. And I looked over at my buddy and he had his socks on and he was sitting with his legs or his feet touching kind of in butterfly position. And as he started to lay back, I was laying back. And I remember thinking, man, he should have took his socks off and stretched his legs. And I wanted to take his socks off for him and stretch his legs out. But you want to address that beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are mid-trip and somebody's taking your socks off.
You're like, what's happening here? What did I sign up for?
DMT has been gentle in that it pulls me in nice and slow and just kind of introduces me to everything in slow motion. I closed my eyes and it was like the never-ending story book just shutting. And I was in the world. There was no launch into space. I was like, I'm here. I'm in space. And then I remembered, like, you should check on Nate. And so I have this thing, sometimes before medicine ceremonies, you do like a tarot card. You pull out a tarot card. It's got an animal on it. Mm-hmm. You have a spirit animal to take with you on your journey. If you need help, you focus, you call for the animal. I don't like that game. I like to bring my own spirit into it. I manifest a pirate ship, big and beautiful, black fucking sail. The wood is shitty. There's cannons, swashbucklers. It's a good pirate ship. But I summon the pirate ship. Pirate ship pulls up. I'm in DMT land. I fucking get in it. I'm like, let's go get Nate. And I pull myself out of this thing, and I'm super proud of myself for being able to be that present in the moment. And I look over at Nate, and he's shaking. He's having a tremor. And if you ever have seen somebody had a bad DMT experience, they happen. He's tremoring. I pull his legs down, take his socks off, rub his heart, give him some breathing commands. And then he yelled for 20 minutes like he was facing death. It was this visceral, scary. You don't hear grown men who are physically fit and in tune yell like that. You might in a moment, but it's in a moment of panic and then chaos ensues after.
Mm-hmm.
He's yelling. It's scary. But I had a peace with me. I was like, oh yeah. Just like, Nate, breathe, man. And, rub the heart, touch the head, press the third eye, let him know somebody was there. But it didn't stop, man. It didn't stop. And he's a big boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he stands up and he's like, ah! I don't remember him breathing in. I just remember the loudest yell that you didn't want to hear this type of yell. I just lay him down, lay down, breathe. And I remember thinking like, well, this could go negative. And I evacuated the thought, like it's not going to happen. I remember thinking like, how fucked up am I? I took 2 hits. He took 1 hit. And I looked into the kitchen where it was pitch black and I saw the sacred geometry. I saw snakes. I saw black art happening and moving all over the place. The shadow world was very present. And I was so jealous that I wasn't the one yelling.
Like a primal beast.
I wanted that experience. And so he was good. The story wraps up and ends up being a good story. He was in between 2 worlds and was stuck there. And it's my belief that being stuck can manifest physically. I coach the spine a whole bunch. And I kept telling Nate during practice, hey, straighten out your neck, because he had this huge bulge on one of his like C5 or 6. He had this huge knot. And I was like, straighten out your neck. And he's like, oh, I got a cyst or something here. And it's been happening for this amount of time. It's just like where I carry my stress. So after the yelling ceremony, everybody's safe. The other 2 guys had a really good experience. They didn't really understand what was happening. But we go outside and we're sitting there trying to think of our dream. What just happened? I was very curious. I just wanted to hear what Nate had to say. Like, dude, what'd you see?
Yeah.
What'd they say? Where'd they touch you? How did you interact? Like, let me in.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any earthly idea what happened. And we're sitting there and he like kind of moves his neck and then he reaches back and he's like doing this. And then he elates, my neck is fixed. My thing is gone. And I was like, no, man, you just came out of DMT land. Like, you can't see detail as well. It's going to take give it 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But he kept doing it. And like, I look and I'm like, well, it's definitely not there. And I record everything. So I didn't record that experience, but I had some film from the event we did earlier where I had his neck on camera. And so I pull it open, I find a shot, and I can see his neck with this mass on it. And I'm looking at his neck in reality, and it's not there. And that motherfucker changed. Like, man, he changed in the most beautiful way. He had a very big ego shift. And the ego should be loved. Part of you. If you try and kill your ego, you kill part of yourself. You kill the way you see yourself, the way you see yourself valued. Well, then you're probably going to replace it with whoever told you to kill your ego with their philosophies. So don't kill your ego. Mm-hmm. Have a great relationship with it. But what I figured happened is his old ego, it left, and there was proof, and he was enlightened. And Nate, I love you, and thank you so much for letting us be part of that magic experience. And I'm very blessed that everything worked out great. Yeah, everything worked out great.
That's really cool. I'm actually interviewing him next week for both Highly
Oh,
Optimized.
fuck, you know.
Yeah. So that was really cool going there. And I remember, the first time I actually met him in person was when I came to see you last time in Austin. He was randomly at the park, remember?
Randomly at the park.
Yeah, randomly at the park. And I was like, holy shit. Obviously Leo, but you also know my friend Leah. It was like one of those things where the universe is just like, you guys need to meet. Boom, here you go. And we're just like, it's interesting,
Austin is a vortex, man.
It really is.
There is something happening here that nobody understands. I don't understand. I'm just happy to be part of it, happy to see it. But there is something amazing happening in Austin, Texas.
They need to get better grow laws so I can move there, better cannabis laws. It's the only thing.
Yeah, we're here. I go see in a few years.
Yeah. I mean, the way the world's turning, it won't be too long now before we have federal legalization. And God knows what that's going to look like, but it will allow the rest of the states that have still like hung back to just be like, all right, especially Austin. I mean, Austin's so progressive. I mean, it's
Austin's. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
We're close.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, I love what you said about the ego there, because I say that all the time. People are like, kill your ego. I'm like, that is the most ridiculous advice I've ever gotten, I've ever heard, rather. And it's like, to me, I want what's best for my ego, and my ego is trying to do what's best for me with the information it has, right? With the programs that and undoubtedly I have allowed it to get uploaded with in some way, shape, or form. And so for me, when I go into a experience where I know I'm going to be bringing down the ego, and the ego therefore thinks it might be dying, I always like to either have a journal sesh or just like a talk to the wall sesh where I'll just talk to him and be like, listen, we're doing this so we can both be more authentically us. I mean, you want what's best for me. I want what's best for me. Let's work together and collaborate. And the only times I've had challenging experiences on psychedelics have been before I did that. Ever since then, I've had some extremely like, this wasn't supposed to happen type experiences. And I've always been able to have unity within my being, even when I didn't even know like what side was up or if my eyeballs worked the right way. I was still able to know like, okay, all parts of me were like, don't worry, we're safe, And so, I really feel like that's an incredible, piece of advice, for you to drop in this. And so I really appreciate that, because that's one of the main things I want people that listen to this show to know is that, listen, if you go into this with a very masculine point of view, kill your ego. It's like, that's going to backfire, and it might not happen the first time, but it will eventually, because you are going to have this, triggering of sense of self, because when you're doing psychedelics, how I see it is you're tethering like an astronaut out into the universe. And if you don't know who you are, then how can you lead yourself back to what you are? Right. I mean, it's, the irony is, interesting. And, I love that. And, I'm curious, we might have already talked a little bit about this, but like, why do you feel psychedelics do challenge us and do like scare us at times? Like, what do you think's there?
Well, it's the unknown. Yeah, we did touch on it a little bit, but okay. So I have had a amazing discovery, and it turned out to be a bit of a curse. My ability to manifest is dangerous. I wrote down all these goals some time ago, and they all came true, and they were bizarre. And if you do the math on them, they shouldn't have happened. And so there had to be some magic to disrupt the math. And so it became a practice of mine not to write anything down. Stop journaling, stop writing stuff down. Well, Leo, if you write something down and it comes true, why don't you do that all the time? Because I don't want to know. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I like the mystery. And of course, if you write something down, you don't know how it's going to happen. So there is that journey. That's frustrating. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather not practice manifesting. I actually wrote something down last night, first time in a long time.
Congrats, bro.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay, so let me bring this in. What was the question again, Ryan?
Yeah,
the weeds. Kick it in.
Oh, I got you, bro. Cannabis, recognize cannabis.
You've been there.
Guilty as charged.
It's going to come back.
Yes.
It's going to come back.
But basically the question was like, why do you feel psychedelics challenge us? Like for me, like I've always been curious about this. And for me, it's like, to bring more awareness, right? Because when you get challenged, your whole, again, sense of self, all those things can get uprooted and you can see sides of yourself shadow, gain awareness. So that's been my like best observation, but I'm curious what yours has been.
So thank you for reminding me.
Got you, bro.
The thoughts.
I got you, bro.
So I've been afraid of manifesting, and wasn't completely aware of why. I thought it was because I'll know the unknown, but part of it was accepting the responsibility that you manifested the bad shit too, playa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for manifesting my breakup, my separation, my good stuff, and my bad stuff. So manifesting is like a blessing and a curse, because I know it'll work if I use it, but I'm afraid to use it. And so the psychedelics giving me this other lens of the possibilities of the things you can do also plays into that, and that it's magnified my thoughts, and my wildest dreams are very wild now because I understand that there's an outside world that I can't physically grasp. So a little bit of riff on the idea of psychedelics there.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I don't know if I brought that one in so well. Let me, you know what? This is why, man. Something's on my mind.
Do it. Say it.
Man, the fucking lessons you need to hang out with more people. You need to talk to other leaders. You can't just be the leader because you have these revelations.
Yes.
As we talked about killing your ego, I've been ritually killing my ego. It just hit me.
Do tell.
I was a martial artist for a long time. I took a lot of pride in fucking people up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of combat one-on-one, and I had great pride in finishing my opponents and scarring them and breaking noses and busting eyes and letting them know that I was there. Kind of romantic. It's very masculine. And I got out of that life. I remember beating up my opponent, very tough guy from Mexico. Tough. You can't get, as far as I know, no Mexican has ever tapped out ever in his life. There's no quit. There's no quit in the culture. All right? Name an 80-year-old Latino who's not working with their hands.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make him quit. And so even though I'm beating this guy and he's out of his league, he's not quitting. And it hits me. So I lock eyes with him. I'm in this very submissive position, but I know he's not going to submit. So I hit him hard as I can. And I step past my comfort level of violence, which I thought I didn't have one. And man, that really hurt me. It stayed with me. And I retired my warrior spirit. I stopped competing in martial arts. I stopped competing against other men. Hey, let's see who can drink their drink fastest. No, thank you. I've lost on purpose, so I wasn't in running for winning. And I laid that warrior spirit to rest for 8 years. I have this super masculine practice for swinging a mace, and I make poetry with it. So I've even taken my practice and taken a lot of the masculinity out of what I do in it. Recently, I did some ketamine. Isolate S. There's an R and S.
Mm-hmm.
I took the ketamine, and it was a lot like astral projection, very conscious avatar driving. And it's a tranquilizer.
Yeah. I
took the tranquilizer, and something in me stopped, and I could hear my heart change. I started hearing this drum, and I could see this me, my warrior self. I'm astral projecting. I'm in a loincloth. There's fire, there's sand, and there's this drum, and I'm just hitting it. And the warrior spirit was like, I'm still here.
Mm.
And I saw that warrior, and I was so proud of him. And I like seeing a kid, seeing your kid. I loved myself so much, or that part of myself. And I did not like that part of myself for so long. And I buried my warrior for 8 years. I wonder why I don't love myself, and I have problems finding love, and it's because I hated this person.
Mm.
And that experience helped me love myself, all of myself, and it helped me shed the shame surrounding that dude.
That's beautiful, man. That's
Yeah.
absolutely
So
beautiful.
I'm a warrior now. I'm back.
Hey, man, you
I'm
could have fooled me. I've seen a lot of warrior in you the whole time. And like, what I love about that is it's really a similar experience that I had, and it was not so much the warrior that I killed off in me, but it was more so the inner child, right? Like, once my father passed away, and once like life got really serious real quick, I shut that side of me down, and I became very gray state, and I owned it. Like I thought it was such a great thing. Like, nah, I'm not emotional. Like I don't feel emotion. I don't know. I just don't have it. And then wondered why my life was going off the rails. I was using more and more cannabis. I was in the industry, for those listening. So in the industry, it's rampant unconscious use. And I was definitely doing that, and not really like knowing that like, oh man, this day sucked. Can't wait to go home and smoke a joint type thing. Not like, hey, I'm excited to go home and use cannabis and hop into guitar and see what happens. It was always like I was running away from something rather than running towards it. And then through a deep mushroom experience a few months back, also going through training camp and doing a lot of the work, quote unquote, otherwise, it all finally clicked for me. And I connected to my inner child, cried for like 3 hours straight. First time I've cried in like 14 years, which was pretty wild. Like when I thought about it, I'm like, I mean, maybe like a tear here and there, but like, dude, I had not cried like that in years. And on the other side of that, was so much freedom and so much happiness and so much joy. And it wasn't necessarily because that experience was happy. That experience was a range of emotions that otherwise I would have classified as distasteful or undesirable. But what I realized in that moment was that all of the emotions I was avoiding because I wanted to be positive and happy all the time were actually taking the color out of my world. I only had a couple colors, instead of being able to, as Skittles says, taste the rainbow. And so when I ended up going through that experience, I came out of it being able to say, okay, I have the range of emotions and I understand they're all important. Because if I let any of them go, if I let any of these sides of me go, the inner child, the warrior for you, I am undoubtedly killing a part of myself that, yes, maybe in the past I have allowed that part of me to run amok in some certain way, but it wasn't that aspect's fault. It was the whole totality of my being and how it was operating at that time. And it sounds like that's what you went through with your warrior as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. And, I think we just talked about it, but I still want to ask, just in case there was one that was better or more impactful. Sure. But what was the most impactful lesson you have learned thus far from a result of your psychedelic experiences? Was it loving yourself fully again? Is there something deeper than that or something else you'd like to talk about? Or does that kind of take the cake, my man?
I think the stories, like I ask my students, what is your current favorite move? Because I've had so many experiences with psychedelics, just touching back on the kettlebell superhero LSD experience, that changed my life, changed my wardrobe, changed the way I operate. It showed me that taboo is what they told you, but it opened me up to new practices. So that was a huge rebirth moment for me. But what took the cake was this last experience, the one I just talked about. And it's so powerful that I'm still integrating, judged by this conversation. Like a psychedelic is great. The, smoking the weed, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But the integration process is the thing. You used it, you brought something back. Now, how do you put it into your life?
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, nothing takes the cake of getting my Bushido code back.
Mm.
That means so much to me. And yeah, I didn't realize for the 8 years that I was and it honestly, I just say 8 years because that's how long I've been swinging mace. But it's longer than that I got out of that.
Yeah.
Mark England wants to fight me in a death match. He didn't let me know he's good. He just kind of starts a swirl, and then this whirlpool happens, and then the information gets funneled maybe. But I remember hearing like, Mark England wants to fight you. I was like, why? I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Would never punch somebody. And but it's been kind of fun, like fantasizing about maybe not necessarily punching Mark or getting punched by Mark, but man, there's a big part of my youth that really enjoyed being all those things, and it feels good. It's healthy to compete and to win, and I've poured so much into the feminine that having this new lens on the masculine is. I didn't think I needed to heal the masculine side. I thought the masculine side was good because I could express the feminine so well. But yeah, that's the cake. And this story is going to change. There's going to be a point in my life where one particular experience with a psychedelic helped guide me into another place. I did one last one. I did some Wachuma, which isn't necessarily like this big psychedelic pink elephant experience, but I took Wachuma. This is funny. Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. I haven't done Wachuma yet. Peyote I've done, but
that's where I got this bracelet.
Dude, that's a sick bracelet.
I wear it every time I journey. So we get, I get invited. Hey, we're going to go do some drugs with this rowdy group of people. And I was like, these people are going? I'm going. And so we get to the place. Does your medicine man ever look like Tom Cruise? It happens. Okay. But when it happens, you just kind of don't expect it.
And you're like, wait a minute.
Right?
Is Scientology
when
coming?
The white man starts chanting Native American hymns, it's weird.
Off-brand.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And these are good medicine men. So I get to the event. I realize this guy, he looks like Tom Cruise, man. He's a good-looking guy. He's like, hey, we're going to take this thing. It's not super psychoactive, and you're going to not talk to anybody for like 6 hours or 4 hours or however long. And I was like, fuck this, man. Like, this is not dope. I want to rage with my friends. All these cool people are here. I want to talk to them. What do you mean, sit with myself? 2 hours goes by. We had drank the stuff. I was like, walking around. I hate this. The medicine man walks up to me and he's like, I'm honest. And he says, how are you doing? I was like, well, to be honest, I'm bored. I want to talk to my friends. This stuff ain't working. I don't feel dick. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I was just like, man. He's like, oh, well, we're going to have another serving in an hour. It's like, I definitely need another cup of this stuff. So I just kind of walk around like moving sticks. Well, I was watching people. They were crying. They were journaling. There were people going through stuff. And I was like, why not me? I can't sit still, man. I don't sit still.
Same.
I don't take psychedelics and not party and sprint. I play. I break out the inner child. And so we have the second cup, and this guy he's playing some music. He's super talented. I'm not making fun of this guy. This guy is a goddamn wizard, but just setting for you. Setting the setting. He starts playing this song, Gypsy. I don't know what the song was, acoustic guitar, talking about my gypsy or something like that. I had the second cup, and I was like, okay, something's happening. I felt the emotion kick in. And he made us do the card drawing, and I picked an alligator. And I was like, this is dumb. I don't like alligators. This is not my spirit animal. I don't know why I participated.
take this back.
That's literally what happened.
Yeah.
I went back to the mother tree where we had the ceremony with my card and was like, I'm going to go find other cards because this is not it. And on his altar, he had a little deity, and it was this 6-armed lady, and she had a mace. And I was like, oh, if you got a mace, I can get my mace. Ryan, you're not going to believe this, but I broke circle. I left the circle.
You, Leo? I would never.
I just walked out of the gate. It wasn't like, but I felt it. I stepped onto asphalt, and I was like, oh, okay, breaking circle. I went into a vehicle, unlocked the door, mechanical stuff, breaking circle. But I knew there was a mace in there, so I got the mace, and I was like, I can't sit still and meditate. I'm going to grab my still, and I'm going to move it, and something's going to happen. And I did. I moved the mace around, and it hit me quick. I can get into my meditative state, my meditative solitude quick. And I was able to sit still for the first time. And goddamn, I don't even know if I've ever sat still. But I was able to sit still and receive. And that put me into a place where it magnified my art. It gave me a new experience on working with psychedelics instead of surrounding myself by distractions, taking the medicine, and then being still and seeing what's in the subconscious. Whenever I swing a mace, sometimes it's difficult to understand what's going on. Like you might know a move, but the mind just gets confused with, even though it's very beautiful. The idea of controlling momentum and moving it around is like a run-on sentence. But if I were to take a pose, creating beautiful movement, if I stop and create still, being still, with my Steel Mace, still, it allows the person to feel what I've been expressed, much like punctuation at the end of a sentence. So I found this incredible way to look at mace. Good. It flows, it moves fluid, but how do I convey the emotion? And it was with stillness, being still. And when I strike a pose and I bend my spine and I put my mace in certain positions, you're going to feel it. And so that experience for me, those were my big three. Learning how to sit still, learning that I am exceptional at learning, and that there is not such a taboo on psychedelics. And then knowing there's other stuff out there that's never going to be explained.
That's beautiful.
Infinite possibility, infinite life. I'm so glad I will never be a master of anything, but the pursuit of taking in that knowledge. Very Bushido. Yeah.
That reminds me of like one of the things I've come to over and over again and been so elated and happy to have come to this conclusion. It's like I remember being on multiple mushrooms are always the one that take me there because I love mushrooms. They and I get along very well most of the time. I've definitely got the shit scared out of me a couple of times, but I remember just completely bypassing the working mind, getting to the pure consciousness that you can get to when you go past the mind. You can get there in meditation too, but let's be honest, sometimes I like taking the rocket ship. And so I'm there and I'm just laughing as I'm having this communion with the universe, my higher self, insert proper language here. But, I'm having this experience where I'm just like, oh my God, the more I learn, the more I know that I don't know. And I was so excited because it took so much pressure off me because I realized in that moment that my perfectionism, this thing that drove me and was malware in me because it did help me to a certain point, but then it would run amok, right? So it was almost like, it would help me get really good at something and practice, but it was like, if you don't practice that long tomorrow, you're a piece of shit type thing. That really lifted off of me. And I was able to say like, oh, well, I'm never going to master anything. So now it just comes down to what am I genuinely interested in and what are my goals there, right? We can throw in the term action items to be super woke too, but what are the action items that I can take on that goal? And so that was one of my big lessons I got out of that as well. And I know you and I joke a lot about like all these terms, showing up, doing the work, and I heard Aaron Alexander talking about this recently too, and I geek out about it all the time too, man, because it's really funny. So I had to throw that in there.
I'm just gonna say one last thing, man.
Dude, say it.
Say a couple things,
please.
I remember the first time I heard unlearn. I was like, yeah. We have to unlearn a bunch of stuff. But then what happens when you unlearn stuff and then you learn the new programming? You have to retain it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I went through a breakup, and I think we've all been through a breakup. And the advice they give you, let go. You got to let go.
Mm.
And it's very powerful, man. You got to let go of that feeling. You got to let go of this stuff. But God damn it, what are you going to hold on to?
Mm-hmm.
I love the lesson of holding on. And holding on to your heart,
mm-hmm.
and whoever's wrapped up in that. I know that there's somebody in everybody's life. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is my perception. There are people in my life that I will never let go of,
mm-hmm.
ever. And I'm so happy to have a good relationship with holding on. You know what? It hurts a little bit, but that's okay. I like feeling. That feeling I have, man, I'm not letting go of that. How does it feel? It hurts. I'm so glad that I'm able to measure that feeling and not be robotic about it. So the yin to the yang, I love the woke words. We should talk about all the woke words, but you should also talk about the yang. What's the opposite of that? Because you need to know that lesson. Especially if you're going super far out there, you need to know what the opposite end is, and it should be honored, and it should be practiced.
Yes.
You should have a practice of holding on.
Mm-hmm.
I love my friends. I'm not letting go of them.
Mm-hmm.
What's the cost of me holding on to my friends? Yeah, it might not work out. It's okay. I fucking love you guys. All my ex-girlfriends were waving, hey, great to see you. Yeah. I'm so happy. You're happy? Okay. I've never get out of here. We broke up. Take your CDs.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me anymore.
Don't
get
forget
out of
your
my
hair
life.
dryer.
I'm blocking you on all the stuff. You get those friends. I get these friends. I don't let go, motherfuckers. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't let go. I like it. I'm like the finger fly trap of
the Venus fly trap. Or the Chinese finger trap. Yeah, the Chinese finger
That's the
trap.
one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Bro. One of those things scared me so much when I was a kid. Man.
I understand why.
Yeah. It's the first time I ever had my finger stuck somewhere. I was like, oh no, this could end badly. And it's funny you brought that up at the end because really what I've learned, to get a little Buddhist here, right, is that in the times when I was a teenager and we had, I had breakups, and it wasn't even more like you take your stuff, but it was kind of like I had this feeling of like, oh, now I can't, like, I have to be like this way if I see her. And, those kind of like thoughts you have. What I realized later on in life, and I believe what so many have realized at this point, especially people on this journey like we are, is that really we are all reflections of one another, right? So if we let go of other people completely and get into that whole, like, you take these friends, I take those friends, we're really only hurting ourselves because they are aspects of ourselves that we are letting go of, right? And then therefore, like your warrior story, right? Like you're going to have to come back into those aspects of you at some point to either release the trauma there or be able to come to terms with parts of you that you may not be super fond of, right? And so like by like Xing people out of your life, like even past girlfriends that have cheated on me, like I value them a lot. I might not talk to them, but if I saw them, I'd wave at them because they all did something great for me. And, I see it from their point of view. Like I do believe in soul families. And so for me, it's like, man, you got dealt a shitty hand that you had to be the one to do that to me in this life. Right. Like, and so I see it like everything is happening in divine time because I choose to believe that, because that's what serves my highest good. If I think that I'm the victim and I think that all these things are happening to me, sure, that might be able to make me, put the blame off on someone else. But a lot of times to me, there is no blame. There's just things that happen. And I choose to believe that most likely people aren't going out of the way to hurt other people's feelings. Just shit happens, and that's how I choose to view it,
Beautiful.
Yeah, man.
We align.
Yeah, dude, of course, and Leo, my man, this has been an absolutely awesome ride to take with you on the Psychedelic School Bus. Where can people find you, laugh at your comedic self, and connect with you, my man?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on the Highly Optimized podcast.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, you'll have to look for me if
Cool.
you want to find me.
Boom.
Type in some words. You are a well-educated species. You don't need my Instagram handle to find me. And the chances are that if this is the first time we've met, I've done my work on this earth and I have found you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we should continue that relationship, because this is one conversation of many that we could have. And so it has been good to relive some very fun experiences. And what a gift this was for me. I got to recognize my ego challenges.
Dude.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Of course, bro. And, I think I speak for everyone who's going to listen to this podcast in saying that, they are a bunch of seekers. So I think they will enjoy that journey of finding you, and I know I have. So, and,
you,
dude, I got one last question for you if you're open for it. So
Yeah.
if someone hearing this episode right now was just swayed by you to experience psychedelic medicine for the first time, what would you say to them right now in order for them to have the best experience possible?
The guide is important, and the vessel. The guide is the person who's helping you through your journey. It could be just the person who sold you the bag of drugs. It could also be a well-trained shaman who puts you through the process and guides you through it from start to finish. The vessel is the place where you're going to take the drugs, the bag of drugs. I love saying drugs. And
man. It's nice.
Your vessel should be, it could be the place, your apartment, the park, any setting that you're going to be in, but you also have to realize how important the vessel that you're driving, your flesh avatar. I would encourage you to be in touch with yourself before you go on any journey, before you join a mastermind, before you take a psychedelic experience. Know who you are before you go into that practice. And definitely integrate that process or the experience into your life. It's one thing to do the work, but it is another thing to take the lessons and then apply them. And those three things are an excellent way for you to start your journey. Start small. And man, I miss being a white belt at Mace. I miss it so much, man. I was hanging out with this girl, and we had this anticipation. We knew we were going to kiss, but there's this one magic moment, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, maybe a month, however long that buildup lasts. There is so much to be learned in that place. So enjoy being a white belt. Enjoy starting small. Make sure that the vessel and the medicine man are something you feel comfortable with. So there you go.
I love that, man. That was perfect. Guys, when I first decided to start this podcast, there were certain people I knew I wanted on right away, and Leo was at the top of that list. His ability to speak to the effect these medicines have had upon his life, coupled with the wisdom he is able to infuse into the stories he tells, is, in my opinion, the most effective way to allow people to learn more about these medicines while still being able to keep a lighthearted nature to the conversation. Leo, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and until next time, may your life continue to be one strange, beautiful ride. Aho, brother.
Aho.